You know how they say Sam Colt's Peacemaker won the West? Well, this is the tool that won the jungle, that's for sure. Hey guys, welcome back. I am Jason Salyer, and a machete is my favorite tool. I really enjoy using them. I love how efficient they are at crafting, carving, slashing, chopping, hacking your way through a wild place. And where I live, as you can see behind me, it's basically a rainforest. It rains a lot here. We get, I want to say 6 to 8 feet of rain per year, something like that, and that's quite a bit. Obviously, it's no Amazon rainforest, but it's still a lot of rain, and everything is very lush and green, and briars and thorns and stuff everywhere, and it's just very convenient and very handy to have a thin bladed machete such as this one made by Imitation. These machetes are inexpensive. This one right here, for example, I want to say you could probably buy it for 30 bucks, $35, something like that. They're really, really inexpensive. You can use and abuse them, and they just keep on working, and you don't have to be super careful, cautious with them. They're gonna last. You can beat them up again. You could chop in the ground and stuff, hack roots and things, and not be so worried about it. It's not that big a deal because they are, you know, not that they really have to be replaced very often, but you could replace them very, very easily and very, very cheaply. So I do like machetes, but there are a few things that I always do to machetes, especially these really cheap ones like this one, that I think are really helpful in the beginning when you first get them. They're not quite ready to go. Like, for example, see if you can see the edge on this one. This is how the edge comes. Very rough, very crude, not sharp at all. Very dull. And they really are not very effective as they come. You have to sharpen them when you get them. So, but this is how they ship. It's probably just for, you know, shipping, packaging reasons. They don't want them sharpened. You're generally not doing like fine carving, wood crafting. You can definitely do it, and I've done it plenty of times, but they don't necessarily need the keenest of edges. They just need to be good enough. Good enough. And that's one word, by the way, good enough. I'll show you a few of the things that I do to a machete to get them good to go and ready for action. I'm not pushing down on the stone. I'm just letting the weight of the machete, for the most part, do the work for me. And I'm just doing circular motions the length of the blade. And I'm not even worrying about this tip portion right here. Now, the tip of a machete is, in my opinion, just a sacrificial part of the blade. It's just the part that's designed to bounce off rocks. You're gonna hit rocks, you're gonna hit fence posts and all kinds of stuff if you're using a machete close to the ground. It's just inevitable. So I don't even bother really sharpening that part. I stop right about here. I sharpen everything up to that point. And even this portion down here closer to where your hand is probably not that big a deal to sharpen because you're not going to use it very much. I have found it handy to do wood crafting and type jobs and chores with it by holding it like this and working the stick across the blade. But for the most part, this is all you're really going to use. You're going to use about 6-8 inches of the blade right about there. It's helpful to have a really thin bladed machete like this one because it goes through the material easier. But having more of a convex edge is helpful because it makes the edge last a little bit longer. If you've got like a Scandinavian grind on it, it's going to be really, really slicey and it's going to cut through really, really easily, but it's not going to be as durable. But if you've got such a thin blade like this one, I mean, that is so thin. I mean, it's probably a 1/16 of an inch at the tip here. It's got a distal taper, so it gets a little bit thinner as it goes towards the end. But it's such a thin steel already. I mean, you could slice through stuff with the back of the blade because it's such a thin steel. Spent some time in Belize when I was younger, and they used machetes like this one to mow entire fields. I saw guys clear a whole hillside with machetes like this. They weren't using weed eaters or lawnmowers or bush hogs or any of that stuff. They had machetes and human power. If you are using a stump like I am and you're having a hard time keeping your stone in place, all you gotta do is just take yourself a couple of nails like that, tack them down and make sure you get them below the level of the stone so you don't knock your blade into it. Like that. and squeeze it in there, and that'll help hold it still for you. All right, that's looking pretty good, but usually what I'll do is I'll take one more step and I'll take the diamond stone to it. And for this part, I'll usually hold it in my hand, hold the stone in my hand, and I'll put the tip of the blade, tip of the machete blade on a stump or whatever on my workbench, and then I'll just work it in circular motions just like I did before. Something else that works quite well is if you've got two machetes, you and your friend are working, right? You can use the back of your buddy's machete to sharpen, to put a keen edge, touch it up. Let's say you've been working till lunchtime and you need to touch up your edge, you can use the back of your buddy's machete to touch it up. Iron sharpens iron, so to speak. Then all I'll do to ensure my machete is sharp enough for work is I'll just run it across my thumbnail like that. And if the working surface of the blade is sharp enough to scrape my thumbnail, then I know it's good to go. So I think it's pretty obvious the before and after. This is the before edge, the part closest to the handle that it comes. This is the factory edge. And after only about, I'd say 10 minutes of sharpening, maybe a little more, maybe 20, I've got it to a nice keen edge there. I could use some more work in a few more spots, but I think it's ready for action. And now with this unsharpened portion of the blade closest to the handle, I like to wrap some paracord around it. What that does is it gives me a comfy grip that I can choke up on and get closer to the center, the balance point of the blade, and makes it easy for closer, more detailed, more accurate little chops, right? So if I'm back here, all that weight's out forward, it's a little bit more unwieldy. For bigger slicing, slashing stuff, it's perfect. But when you need to get just a little something, or you want to do a little bit of carving or something on a stick to make it into whatever you need to do, it's nice to be able to choke up on the machete. What I'll do is I'll make myself a loop like this, run the loop past the edge part of the blade where it's sharpened. And I'll leave myself a tag right here, something I can hold on to afterwards when I'm ready to pull it tight. And then I'll just start wrapping over top of itself. So I'll go over top of that tag in like that, closest to the handle, and I'll make it tight. Like that. Now what I'll do is take a little bit of sandpaper or a sanding block, like sanding foam like this one. I think this is 80 grit. And I'll take it to the handle, because the handles come pretty crude just out of a mold, you know. This one I've actually worked on a little bit already, and I've smoothed out the backside. It was quite rough, that ridge right there where the two pieces came apart. It was pretty jagged and sharp and would probably wear a blister in the middle of your hand if you gave it enough time. But anyway, you can see how there's kind of some rough edges on there. So I'll take some sandpaper to it, and I'll just rough it up a little bit, smooth out that edge. And then the plastic handles have kind of this slick surface on them anyway from the factory. So you'll get rid of that by roughing them up with some sandpaper. And that's another thing about not sharpening the tip, is you could stick the end in the ground anywhere and get it to hold still for you while you're sharpening it or whatever. You don't have to worry about it damaging a sharpened edge. All right, so we've got our handle cleaned up now, nice and smooth. It's not going to give you any blisters or hot spots when you're using the thing. I like that a lot. I could do without this lanyard hole. I do not like lanyards on machetes. The only reason I have a lanyard on a machete like this one is not for attaching it to my body in any way. It's just so I can hang it on a nail on the wall. That's the only reason that's there. If I was to chop and lose grip of this thing and it's attached to my wrist, I can't get this one on there, but imagine that's attached to my wrist. And if I should lose grip of this thing and it's attached to my wrist, where's it gonna end up? It's gonna make this circular path and it's gonna come right back towards me. And that would be less than ideal in my opinion. So I would rather just go away from me. Make sure you're working in a safe distance from other people, of course, but I do not like lanyards, wrist lanyards on machetes. Last thing to do is just get rid of some of this glue. Does it need to be done? No, but I don't like that stuff on there, so I'm gonna use my sandpaper, see if I can get that off of there. Some Goo Gone would be nice. I don't have any Goo Gone. A heavily used blade such as this one is fine. I've never oiled it or anything like that, and it gets a little rust on it from time to time. The portion that you use the most doesn't really get any rust on it because you wear it off. But if you get a little surface rust on there, you can just take a little sandpaper to it and clean the edge up. Not that it's going to hurt anything, it doesn't really matter, but you can clean it up like that. Get it back looking pretty. And then if you want to spray some WD-40 on it or something like that, you could always do that. I've seen guys paint their machetes to keep them from rusting. I mean, I guess that's a thing if you're into that. Back looking pretty ish. This machete is ready for work for years and years to come. Very inexpensive, very easily made usable. From the factory, it's not going to be usable, in my opinion. It's going to be too dull. It's going to get blisters on your hands, and that's probably a lot of people's complaints about these inexpensive machetes. But if you take, I don't know, less than an hour to do the stuff that I just did, it's ready to go, and this thing will serve you right, I think. So, and I don't know if you knew this about me, but one of the reasons I like machetes so much is I can't stand weed eating. Like, I don't know what it is about weed eating. The sound, the vibrations, everything about weed eating I hate so much. so I just don't do it. If a machete and a bush hog can't take care of it, I'm not interested in the landscaping. Long bladed machete like this is going to be excellent. It's really nice because you don't even have to bend over, really. I mean, stuff close to the ground, you're standing up perfectly straight and you can hack all the stuff close to the ground. All these briars and stuff right here, this is all covered in thorns. This stuff, short work with a long bladed machete like this. Obviously, keep track of where your hands and feet are. But that long length of this machete through this spindly stuff, I mean, that is where this one shines. Just the momentum of it, the momentum of that long blade just carries itself through. You pick it up and just let the machete do the work on the way down. You know how they say Sam Colt's Peacemaker won the West? Well, this is the tool that won the jungle, that's for sure. Some of you are going to be wondering about a sheath. I typically don't use sheaths for machetes. I keep one in my truck. That's where I keep this one right here. This one stays in my truck, and it just stays in the back of my truck in one of the compartments. Yeah, it's just floating around. It's exposed blade. Yeah, I get it. I'd like to have like a canvas lightweight sheath for it, or even a really some sort of thin Kydex. I oftentimes just keep one stashed in the tractor. So I'll keep them kind of stashed all around. I have one hanging on a hook in the barn and keep one in my truck. And I'll also keep one in the tractor holster right here. Like that. So when there's low hanging branches and stuff that need to be cleared out, I can do that without having to get off the tractor. All right, guys. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I cannot wait to see you on the next one.